QE2 is a replay of exactly what got the global economy into the state it's been in for the 3 or 4 years leading up to the subprime crisis. That is the view of Morgan Stanley's Asia chairman, Stephen Roach. Well, just a short while ago, he spoke exclusively to Bloomberg's Phillip in Singapore. Here's what he had to say.
I'm not a fan at all. I think we've gone down this road before. It helped us at the low point of the crisis, but it's not clear it's going to give us traction in stimulating economic recovery and in reducing unemployment in the United States. So it's aimed at giving a lot of froth to asset markets and counting on individuals and businesses to boost activity through asset effects. And to me, this is a replay of exactly what got us into the mess in the 3 to 4 years before the subprime crisis.
Let's expand on it a bit, because there's been a growing concern, especially from developing countries who are subjected to a lot of that inflows of assets, China being a major player in that.
Well, sure. I mean, if the U.S. economy is paying down debt and rebuilding saving, then the quantitative easing doesn't go into the real economy. It leaks out through savings flows to perceived high rates of return markets in the developing world. And the risk here is that the developing economies then experience asset bubbles, which are inherently destabilizing to their system. So they're pretty nervous about it, and understandably so.
We got a big G20 meeting on its way. How worried are you about the rhetoric that's going to be surrounding this, quote, currency war, and what can really be done at this point?
Well, I think the currency war was a real possibility prior to this late October breakthrough of the G20 finance ministers meeting in South Korea, when U.S. Treasury Secretary Geithner did propose an alternative set of tactics aimed directly at resolving current account balances. It looks like the G20 is going to embrace some loose interpretation of the structure, and hopefully that could give us a ceasefire, at least temporarily, on this currency war issue.
Earlier, the Chinese government, SAFE, the State Administrator for Foreign Exchange, on their website talked a bit about capital controls. Now, it's not something that we've talked about in the past, but this term, capital controls, is beginning to appear more and more often. How big of a deal is this?
Well, I think it's not just idle discussion in China, but it's certainly evident in South Korea and in other developed markets in developing Asia. And again, it reflects the fact that the central banks in the developed world are flooding the system with liquidity, and the last thing developing economies want is for that liquidity to distort their own asset markets and create a destabilizing bubble. So I think there's going to be a fair amount of resistance to this, and again, this is an example of the unintended consequences of fairly reckless monetary policies in the major developed economies of the world.
All right, so my last question is a two-part question. Make it a little interesting here, in a sense that if you look at the way the world is structured at this point, and you don't believe that the quantitative easing will work in the same sense that the government would like it to work, so how does this story end, and what makes you worry at night about the economy?
Look, it's a tough place that the world is in right now. We've gone through a horrific crisis. Policymakers are trying to do their best to restart the global economy and absorb excess unemployment. The plain fact is that economies that have been the most damaged by the crisis, namely the U.S. and European economies, the healing is going to take a lot of time. The political cycle that we operate under has no tolerance for solutions that take time. So policy is impatient, and policy, because it's impatient, tends to be reckless. I worry that we're headed for another crisis. I have no idea when it'll be and over what period, over what markets it will hit the hardest, but this is a movie we've been to before, and it's not that long ago where we saw how this movie ended. And I think we really need to rethink the whole structure of monetary policy as being a source of instability and not the stabilizing force that we needed to be in this post-crisis world.
All right, very interesting. Thank you very much, Stephen.
Thank you.